Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning, okay? So in this channel of ours, we do a lot of videos on web development. We teach you how to write your own web development code, especially in Python. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been doing our Python Tweepy version 2 tutorial, okay? That is showing you how to utilize the new Twitter version 2, especially if you want to work with Python and using the Tweepy library for that, okay? So we already have 2 videos in this series, and this is going to be the last one where we're going to take you through the process of actually building a Flask application that you can use to display your tweets and do a whole lot of stuff in the background with it, which I think is really, really cool. And a use case for this is utilizing it for like lead generation, for example, okay? So let's get through the admin stuff first, okay? So the video that you're watching right now, if you go to the bottom of it, make sure that you click on that like button, okay? Like the video that you're watching if you like it. If you don't like it, leave us a comment and let us know why you don't like it and what we can do in future to improve it, okay? So all comments are welcome, guys, and I'm always trying to incorporate as much as possible the comments that you guys give me. Even if I don't say it, I'm always thinking about it because I'm here creating this content for you guys so that you can enjoy and you can learn. So if there's something you feel I can do better, you're more than welcome to leave me a comment and I will look into it, okay? And if you look into the description below the video over there, you can click that show more button. And I'm going to link a lot of the stuff in there. If I say to you, I'm going to link in the description below, I'm going to be linking it in there, all right? And also the video timestamps will be available for the majority of our videos because our videos are quite long. There will be timestamps that can help you to jump to the different sections of the video. You don't have to watch the entire video. If I'm doing a section that you think, okay, I've already done how to set up Flask, for example, I don't need to watch that. You can just go to the timestamp and you can jump over directly to a section that you want to watch and you can watch that, all right? And I've got also our links, social media, we've got a Medium publication where I try as much as possible. Time is not always on my side, but when I do get the time, I do try to write up this tutorial in a Python, in our Medium publication. You can go read it up and then you can get links in there and you can learn even more, okay? So let's get started. This is oh yes, and of course, yes, don't forget to subscribe, okay? Don't forget to subscribe to our video. There'll be a subscribe button underneath the video. Smash that subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time that a new video is available on our channel. Generally, we create new videos every week. There's new content on a Saturday, but otherwise, if you got the notifications on, you'll be notified when a new video gets published, all right? So this is the web application that we're going to build. It's fairly basic in terms of the the sort of the displays, but it does a lot of it's got a lot of power in the back end what it does here. So you'll be able to have a form over there that you can search for something specific, like a topic, all right? So let's say I wanted to search for CRM recommendations, recommend. So I'm looking for people that are typing tweets that inside of their tweets they've got something around CRM recommend, because those people will be asking for somebody to recommend to them a CRM, okay? So I'm going to search for those things and I'm going to run search query. It's going to take a bit of a while because it's going to Twitter. I'm searching for like 10 tweets at a time. It's finished running and you can see this is the results that it gives me, okay? And I can I can read through the tweets. I can either retweet something, okay? If I wanna I've got a button for retweet. If you wanna retweet something that you really learned, you can retweet that button, but I'm not gonna retweet. I'm looking for specific people that are needing recommendation, all right? Features like this or whatever and more, highly recommended. So this one is recommending something, so that's not what I want. I want someone who needs a recommendation. Which marketing CRM would you recommend, or which CRM tool would you recommend? So you can click on that button that says view tweet, and you can see the tweet inside of Twitter, and then you can respond and say, I recommend my own platform, all right? So this is great for lead generation. You can immediately respond to people, and if you ran this daily, you would get the tweets as they come through, and then you can help build your client base. You can search for anything, I don't know, whatever's trending today. Let me show you. Let me search for JubeTube. That's something we've been searching for as we're building this as well. So let's say we run this query searching for people that are talking about JubeTube, because JubeTube has been trending on Twitter this morning. You can see now this is all the JubeTube stuff. Okay, I'm not happy with how Jub is talking about Kilikumalo when no one cares about your happiness. So let's say you wanna view this tweet inside of Twitter. You can have a look and you can say, yeah, I'm also not happy about this. Yes, I'm also not happy. So you can respond to say, yeah, I'm also not happy, whatever. But I'm not gonna retweet that on my business account. But I'm just saying that, for example, that's something that you can do. So you can use this for a lot of things. And if you liked a tweet, you found something that you wanted to retweet, you could click this button, and I've tested it. It works. It will retweet it. So this is really, really useful, I think, and a very amazing use case for the new version 2. And there's a lot of actual web applications that charge you for this lead generation, and they're not cheap. And if you learn programming, you can build this. We built this in 3 weeks, which was an equivalent of what, 3, 4, 6 hours. So if you had 6 hours to go through our video tutorials from beginning to end, you could build this for yourself and create your own sort of lead generation website using Python version 2, Tweepy, and we used Flask to do this front end. Okay, so let's get started with this tutorial. So we're gonna get started with building a Flask web application. You could use any framework really to build this application that we're gonna do, but the whole point of the app is to be able to display the information that we are gathering from Twitter so we can interact with it. We're building a sort of like a sort of a front end in a way that can help you visualize what's happening. If you want to be able to decide what you want to retweet, what you want to follow, what you want to view, what, you know, sort of it gives you a visual representation of what is happening in the background, you know. And really the fastest way for me to actually put together a web application is using Python Flask. So I'm not going to go into a whole Django app in this specific case. I'm going to use Flask. Flask is very lightweight. It's very, very easy to implement with just 1 or 2, 3 different files, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. First of all, just get started by going to the Bootstrap website, because we're going to be using Bootstrap for our styling. And make sure you've got Bootstrap opened, and then we're going to use some of the cards inside of Bootstrap. We're not going to make a very complicated application. We just want to visualize the data that's coming out of Twitter so we can do something with it. Okay, now I'm going to take you through how I put together I call it boilerplate Flask app. Okay, so it's got all the things that you need to get started with Flask, and maybe I'll do this. I think I've got this somewhere on my GitHub as well. Okay, if you go through it. So basically, for the boilerplate Flask application, you need just a couple of folders. You need a folder called static. All right. And inside of that folder called static, you're going to put all your static files. So they are like your CSS, your JavaScript, if you've got fonts, images, CSS, whatever it is. And you can see currently these folders are empty because I don't have anything inside. This is just, okay, I've got a fav icon and that's it inside of the images. Nothing inside JavaScript, nothing inside of CSS. If you're going to use any static files inside of your web applications, you would save them in there. So inside of my boilerplate folder structure, I have the files anyway, because then this is where I know I would put my static files. And then you've got another folder called templates, and inside of that templates folder you have your index, or all your HTMLs are gonna fit in there. Okay, so all your templates that you're gonna use in Django, we've got templating. So if you think about that templates folder in Django, it's the same one, but in this specific case, you put it inside of your root of your app. All right, and inside of the templates folder, I've got only index and 404. Okay, so this is, like I said, my boilerplate. I always have the index and the 404 because I can copy and paste this boilerplate every time I want to do a Flask app, and I don't have to rebuild the folders from scratch. So this is good practice for you as well. Just keep a nice boilerplate template to work from, and every time you want to do Flask, you just sort of start from that starter boilerplate, right? So instead of the templates, a folder, really all you need is your index and perhaps something for the 404, but this is optional, it's not necessary. So the index is going to be the first page that you will see when you open your app. And inside of my index file, I just have like a boilerplate HTML, thing. There's nothing in there really. I've got a container there that says, even though I don't have any CSS class, I know there is a container class inside of Bootstrap, which is what I'm going to install here. And inside of there's nothing in there. It's just like a heading that says this is Scolo, and a paragraph. Okay, so you can just like do something like that as well. And the only thing that I've got in here as well is your links, because the way you link the files inside of the static folder inside of Python Flask is slightly different. So I always keep this line of code inside of my boilerplate to remind myself when I start to link my images or my CSS how to do it. Okay, so you normally would say URL for static, and then you say file name is equals to whatever that file name is inside of the static folder. So if you've got a static folder there like this one here, and inside of the static folder you've got an images folder, which is that one there. And inside of the images folder, you've got a file called favicon.png. This is how you would link that file to, inside of your HTML, you would say URL for static, and then inside of static, the file name is images. So this is the folder, and then inside of that folder, there is a file called favicon.png, and then you can close your curly braces, double curly braces, outside of this statement. And this is how you would link any image inside of your HTML. If you had CSS at the top there, you would link it like that. If you had JavaScript at the bottom, you would link it like that as well. Okay, so I normally just keep this here to remind myself of the actual convention of linking the static assets. Then once I've done that, then you can, inside of the root of your directory, you will have a folder called static, a folder called templates, and then you need a file called app.py. This is the engine of your application. This is where everything is running. Inside of Django, this is similar to your manage.py file, but in Flask, you're going to write it yourself. All right, and you'll start at the top there by importing Flask. Okay, obviously you need to install Flask inside of your virtual environment before you can do this. I'll show you quickly how to do that. And then I've got a config file. This is where I'm going to keep all my config elements. If I've got passwords, I'll keep them in there. If I've got, things that I don't want to put inside of my normal file, and I want to, instead of saving it in the environment, I'm going to save it inside of the config file. And then I've got, for the boilerplate app.py, just how to find the 404, which is a page not found. I think this is just standard for any application, so that otherwise Flask will show like a standard 404 display, which is not nice. If you want to have your own specific 404 template that gets displayed when a page is not found, it's better to create that HTML template like that. That's why I've got it in there. Inside of templates, I've got that 404, and then you can design a nice image for it, and so that it looks a little bit more professional. And that's why I always have right at the beginning of my app a page not found function, and inside of that page not function, I put in the error in there, and then I render the template 404 so that it always displays that. All right, and of course you're gonna have to register it after you've initiated your app. And that's how you do it. But first of all, we will initiate the Flask app, and how you do that is just app is equals to Flask, underscore name underscore, and then on the other side, then after that you'll say app config from object config development. This is just importing your config elements, because normally you would have manually now set all the config elements of inside of your application, but instead of doing that, we're going to create a whole config file, which is this one over here. Let me just show you. All right, and inside of the config file, what I've done is that I've got two different configurations. I've got a configuration for testing and a configuration for debug, and then you can have a configuration for production. You can have multiple configurations, and you can create them there, and then so that when you're testing, you're using different elements. This is just for me the boilerplate, so that I remind myself in future, when I'm actually running this application, what configuration am I in? I think you can have testing, production, development. You can have as many as you want, or you could have just one. Okay, but when this boilerplate, I keep it this way so that I know that, okay, if I wanted to have a different config, this is how I would do it inside of the config file. All right, I'll make these files available for you to have a look at later on. Maybe I'll put them in my GitHub. Remind me in the comments if I forget. I normally do, it's a weekend, but nonetheless, then that's how you register the config. So this one replaces you having to specifically list each and every single config element, like your secret key and all the things that you want to put in there. So instead of listing them inside of your actual app.py, you would put them inside of this file. And then so for the development config, which is the only one I'm going to actually activate in this specific case, class development config, I've only specified the secret key. All right, so there's other things you can add, like for example, if you've got email and you're going to use Flask mail, for example, to send emails, and I think maybe we're going to later on do that. If you want to send ourselves an email, you would put all the email configurations in here, right? And then you'd create that object and call this development config. So this development config over there, I'm going to map it to, I've called everything development config because I'm not using any of these other ones anyway. But technically you wouldn't do that. You would have like a different class. You would have, for example, a different class that you would say class. Then maybe you would say production config, right, like that. And then inside there you would say config element, whatever it is, config, like that. No, not like that. Like that. And then you would be able to specify all the variables. You would have maybe a different secret key for that. And you could put whatever you want in there, and maybe you've got other things like your email. Maybe you're using a different email setting for development and whatever. And then this production config a class, you would then replace it in there, all right? And you would then put it in there, all right? But I'm not going to do that actually, because I was just showing you that you could do all of that. And then you would have this config class, and this is what you're importing inside of your app. All right, so that's config.config. So you are importing the config file at the top, and inside of the config file, you want the config, object, which is this one over here. This config dict object, and inside of this config dict object, you're gonna pull whichever configuration you want, whether it's development, testing, or production. So we are actually pulling development in this case, but it doesn't really matter because they are all the same. But I'm just showing you that in future, if you did want to have different ones for different levels or different types, you would specify all of them and specify them there. And then every time you run your app, you only need to then change this element. When you go into production, you just change this and you call it production. When you're doing testing, you change that and you say test. And whatever it is that you had different configs for all of that. That's how you do that. And then after that, you can register the error handler. You register that 404 page not found. All right, so you register 404 page not found. That means that now Flask app will know that if it can't find it, if it can't map any route that a user is given it into the routes you've defined in your app, and instead of it showing a standard 404 boring thing that makes your app look unprofessional, it will instead display the 404 template which you have designed. And you can do this as well, by the way, to register a 500 error, internal server error. You can use this to register any type of error that you like, so that you can show different things. Like, for example, for internal server, instead of it showing a blank page that says, internal server, you want it to actually maybe show a nice image that says, oh, we're working on it, we're fixing it. That's how you would actually do that as well. So you can register as many errors as you like there. And then once you've done that, what I'm doing at the bottom here, I'm just displaying the, the home app root, and then I'm going to just render the template index.html, which is that render template at the top, which is imported from Flask. So I think if you've worked with Flask before, this should be fairly straightforward for you, but I just have to define it for everybody else so that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to use this Flask application to now deal with my Django app. But let's get the Flask app just to run and make sure that everything is working fine. So I'm going to save all of this, and I've already saved this, by the way, and I want to push it into my virtual environment and into my app where I'm running from. And you can see right here, I'm inside of the app.py. If I do nano and I open app.py in here, okay, you will see that this is exactly what I have in there, what I was just taking you through. So there's nothing there. It's just the page not found registration and the app root, which is this one there. And then we're going to run on port 800, and we are specifying that the debug is equals to true. Okay, so you can close this, and then the way you run the Flask app is just to say Python app.py. All right, that's just a very simple. It's showing you this is a development server. Please don't do this in production. That's okay. I've already shown you in this channel how to actually run a Flask app in production. I'm not going to show you today because this is not the purpose of this tutorial. For this tutorial, I'm just showing you now how to work with the Twitter API using an actual app in the front end to display the tweets from Twitter and interact with the API sort of in a more visual way, as opposed to coding line for line. So let's have a look at port 8000. All right, so I'm going to just open a new window here, and I'm just going to do HTTP, and I'm going to go into my VPS, and I'm going to look for port 8000, and we're going to run it, and you'll see it's just showing this is Scolo. Let's start building this school. This is what we have over there. No, not in the config, but it's what we have inside of the index.html. So basically, this is what we're showing there, all right? So what I'm going to do now is, while this is running like that, I'm going to go into Bootstrap, and I'm going to find the Bootstrap boilerplate. They've got the Bootstrap boilerplate for you there, all right, which is this one here. So I'm actually just going to copy at the top. I will link this, but you can find this by Googling Bootstrap Bootstrap 5, because there are different versions of Bootstrap, and make sure you don't get the wrong one. Okay, so Google Bootstrap 5 so that it takes you to version 5.0, and then you will find this page that I'm at. Okay, so this is the same page that I'm at, and if you just scroll down that page, you'll find this boilerplate HTML. So I'm just gonna copy that, and I'm gonna paste it in here because just above what I've got there. All right, so this is the Bootstrap boilerplate. It's got some stuff sort of like highlighted out, or what is it like, that's not being displayed, but so that you can choose what you want to do. So you got an option of using the Bootstrap bundle with Popper, or you can separate them. If, for example, you didn't want to use Popper, you just wanted to use the min.js. All right, so I'm going to delete the bottom part and use option 1 because I think that's okay. All right, so you can pick one of the two. All right, and instead of hello world, I'm gonna actually display what I had displayed there before. So I'm gonna cut that from there, and instead of displaying hello world, I'm gonna display that. Okay, this is Scolo in that container, and then I just want to make sure that I've got my my title and my link for the thing at the top there. So I'm gonna go in there and paste that in there. I mean my icon, my fave icon. All right, so I can remove that title. I don't need 2 titles, so I'm gonna keep the Scolo title and keep my fave icon and keep the Bootstrap, and then I can delete all of this. You can't have 2 HTML templates in the same file. So basically, I've managed to get the Bootstrap boilerplate with just that paragraph at the top with one container, and we're going to use the CDN, by the way. So there are 2 ways you can get Bootstrap into your project, and this is basics, right? And I hope if you're watching this channel, you know these things, but in case you're watching this channel and you don't know this, is that there are 2 ways you can incorporate HTML and CSS into your, I mean, there's 2 ways you can import, you can incorporate sort of CSS and JavaScript libraries inside of your project. Okay, the easiest way is using what we call a CDN. A CDN is a content whatever system that actually stores those files inside of a cloud container somewhere, and you just access them remotely from your application. So your application basically just goes to this HTTPS location, CDN, whatever the CDN is, and it finds this file, and these people basically, they host these files for you so that you don't have to host them yourself, and you can just then build an app without actually putting in your HTML and CSS libraries directly into the application manually. All right, so you can use the CDN if you're doing a quick app, and especially if you're doing an app that is not for production, I would recommend using a CDN because it's the fastest way to do it. Okay, the second way to do it is to literally download the actual Bootstrap 5, and there's an option to download it here. I'm not going to go through it, and manually get those HTML and CSS files, not the HTML, the CSS and JavaScript files, this CSS at the top and that JavaScript, actually save them inside of your computer in these folders, and then refer to them directly, linking them from inside of the HTML. Okay, this is the way most applications do it, and this is how I do it in the majority of my production app, even testing apps. But it's a bit of a longer process. It takes more time to do it that way, and if you can use a CDN for learning purposes, I would definitely do it. The problem with the CDN and why it's not used generally in production app, because you might ask yourself, well, if I don't have to install all these apps, why am I doing it if I don't have to install all these libraries, why am I doing it in the first place? First problem is that the CDN is going to take a bit longer to load because your app has to literally call the CDN and find the file and bring it back. So the loading time of your app is going to be a little bit longer. Even if it's just a second or a split second longer, it's going to be longer than if you have the files directly inside of your computer. And that affects your loading speed. And when it comes to Google and SEO and all of those things, even a split seconds can be the difference between being the first one that's shown, when your page is loading, or somewhere on the second page of Google. All right. So that is the reason why the majority of apps don't do it. The second reason why, which is probably a bigger problem, is that this is being hosted by somebody else. Okay. And you have to trust and hope that these people will continue to host it, and they never go down. The business never, your app can break 5 years from now if for some reason they move this CDN, or they no longer maintain it, or maybe they just take down the website. So you have to rely on these guys literally hosting the CDN for you. All right. So what bigger apps generally do is that they'll host their own CDN, like they'll create their own content delivery network. And then, oh yeah, that's what CDN stands for, content delivery network. They'll create their own content delivery network and then host their own static files inside of that CDN. And that's probably best practice if you really, your app reaches production, because that loads even faster than you actually having your CSS manually inside of your static folder. That is the best approach. And if you get into a proper production app, that is probably how you would do it. Okay, but for testing purposes, you can use somebody else's CDN, and we don't know how fast it's going to be. We don't care, because this is a learning app and I'm teaching, and I just wanted to show you the differences between just using the CDN on Bootstrap, or actually like downloading it yourself, or alternatively, when you become like proper production, you will then actually just like host it, maybe create your own CDN, or pay for hosting your own CDN somewhere which is like super fast, and put your files in there. All right, with that said and done, we've got our CSS and HTML over here. What we're gonna do is that we are gonna then push these changes, and we're going to test this and see how this goes. All right. All right, so that is restarted automatically. So let's go and have a look, just and refresh this page, and you can see everything looks completely different. So now we've added styling in here. We've got Bootstrap styling. Our app looks much better than without the styling, and we can then start to put in a card. So I'm just gonna go into Bootstrap and have a look at some of the cards they've got here. I'm thinking this is a nice card, probably without the image at the top. Let's see, because I don't need an image. Just this. But I like this one, right? The card title, not this. Yeah, even with the last updated everything, right? And I'm just gonna remove the image. So let's just copy that. What's happening? Dish. Where was I? Yeah, because I want to be able to see if I can display when was the last time the Twitter. Or actually, you can just click that button. Perhaps as maybe the username or whatever, we can display. We can use that at the bottom and display the tweet like that. Okay, so in this space over here inside of the index.html, we're gonna display our tweets. Okay, so let me just open this page and have a look there. So we're gonna keep this title, and we're gonna call this your latest tweets. All right, and inside of your latest tweets, we're gonna remove these paragraphs. All right, we're gonna delete these paragraphs, and we're gonna replace them with that content that we just copied over there. Let's have a look at what's in here. Just create some space there. So you've got a card group. So that's what it's doing here. You've got a card group, and you've got multiple cards inside of the group. So I will actually just want to keep one card for now. We will loop and have more cards later on, right? So let's just remind ourselves where the card starts. Okay, card starts here. All right, card ends here. And then you can just sort of like, I don't know, double, just make sure this doesn't display properly in the HTML. And then you can have the image. I don't want the image, so I'm going to remove that image. I'm just going to keep the card title and the card text. So this will be the tweet title, and whatever the tweet content we will display it in there. And then maybe we'll put in the username of the person who created the tweet and something like that. So this is inside of the index file. So let's save all of this and let's run this again. Add a card. Coolio. Cool. So did this restart? You can always restart it manually if it didn't. Let us have another look and we've got our card there. So this card is taking up the whole space. Perhaps what we want is maybe three cards in a row. How will we do that? So perhaps what we will do is that we'll then put this inside of a row. All right, so inside of this card group. No. Let's see if that will work. Div row, and then put it inside of a column. Okay, column LG4. If I want it to be like a third of the length, but then let me see if I then have three of these, what this will look like. I'm just trying to work on my, how this is gonna look. All right, actually let me like put another one, a fourth one, and see if it will go underneath into the next row. All right, okay, so working on the display. Right, so when we get here, we're going to just restart that, and yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so I want to be able to have the tweets displayed within a space. So what this does here is that it gives you a you create a row, and then you put call LG4s. Call LG4s is like creating a column that is, so within a Bootstrap row, you have 12 units. Think of it as 12 units. And then within 12 units, you can divide your column into whichever, fraction of that 12 units, whichever way you like. So you can divide it into two, which means you'll have a 6. You have to divide the 12 by 2, so one will be 6, the other one will be 6. Or you can divide it into 3 equal parts, which means you must divide the 12 into 4 units. So that's what I'm doing here. I've got 4 units, which means it will take a third of the 12. So take that 12 divided by 4, it will be 30 units. If you wanted like 4 of these, you would have to divide the 12 by 3 units. So this would be called LG3. So think of a Bootstrap row as a unit of 12, and how much space you want in there will be dependent on how you divide that. But I need some space between this and that, which means I need to give it a margin bottom so that this doesn't look so bad. So between this call LG4, I'm going to add so actually I'm just gonna copy this and find it so I can replace all the call LG4s with call LG4 margin bottom MB3, something like that. All right, so let's replace all. Okay, so it just adds MB3 next to the call LG4s. I just want to be able to have space between this and that there's a bit of a margin in there. So, and I also want some space at the top, so between your latest tweets there. So let's say over here between this container, let's see if I can have margin top 5. I don't know if that will work, but let's see. All right, so let's save all of that and let's push this. Okay, margins. Sometimes, CSS styling for me, because I'm not a front-end designer, I'm more of a Python designer, back-end designer. Sometimes you've got to be able to do front-end work as well. So some of this is trial and error for me, but it works, I think. So I have a margin top there, which I added that MT5. 5 is bigger than 3, so there's a bigger margin. And over here, I think an MB3 is enough. And so all the tweets will have a nice margin in between them. So what I will do now, I will actually delete all of these because I just wanted to get a proper card. So actually, I must say card starts here. Let's remove that. And card starts before the column, all right? Because this is the thing that I will duplicate for the tweets that I'm gonna get. So I'm gonna create a card that I can multiply as many times as I have tweets. So then I can delete these ones. I was just sort of testing how the cards will look if there was more than 4. So I will duplicate it with a for loop. So that's okay. So at least we've seen what the cards look like. So I still have my row at the top there. So the row starts and ends there. And then the card starts and ends here. And then I'll be able to display my tweets like that. So my front end is pretty much done. So remember what we did last week. If you guys are catching up with this tutorial, this is the third in the tutorial series, okay? So I would highly recommend you go watch the previous tutorials before you come back here, because we've done a lot of work on the Tweepy Twitter version 2 API. At this point, we're now just wanting to display our content and sort of interact with it in the front end. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go back to the code that we wrote last week. So it's not in this app, it's in this file, the search. All right. So this code that says search, there it is. It's the client and everything. I need to be able to import this library or rewrite this function somehow inside of this app. Okay. So what I really want to do here, okay, let's close that static. So inside of this app.py, you've got the config.py. I actually want to create now a file in here. Actually, that's not going to work very well. Yeah, it is, because what are we importing? We're only importing config and JSON. All right. So we can actually do this. Dish. All right. So I'm going to then create a new file here, and we're going to call this search.py because it'll be easier. Then I'm just going to copy everything which is in here. Okay, copy that search and paste it in this other search. All right, and then we need to get the config as well and paste it in there, but we'll do that. I'll do that a little bit later, because what's going to happen here now, we're going to have to refer to the config slightly different. We're importing the config there, so we're going to have to say config.config.development. No. How are we going to do this? All right, so just copy this bearer token, and inside of the config file at the bottom, just put it like that, right? And the same for the API key. Same for the API secret. Same for the access token and access token secret. Okay, and then include your tokens and your secrets, whatever, just paste them in here the way we had them in the other file. Okay, I can't do that in front of you because I don't want to show my keys again, because then I have to change them again if I do that. So I'm going to do that off camera. I'm going to pause this video over here, and then I'm going to paste these values, and then I'm going to come back and continue with editing this code to be able to work with inside of the Flask app. Okay, done with the config file. So let's go through the search tweets that we did last week. Okay, so remember last week we started we're working with the Tweepy new version. So we have to install it, so you have to do the pip install. Like I said, this is the third video in a video series. You gotta watch the previous ones. I'm gonna try and do a quick recap, but you really have to watch the previous videos to get the details of what we're trying to do here. So the first function here is the function for instantiating our client, which is the function that actually just logs us in with our API keys and tokens, which are saved inside of the config file. All right, and returns the client. And then this is the function for searching through the tweets. Okay, so we're just searching through the tweets with the maximum results of 10, and we've got a query over there that we're going to be using to do the search. And once we do that, we return those tweets that we've searched, return the data. And then over here is, once you have a specific tweet, we realize that we wanted to also get the username, and for some reason this API wasn't giving us what we wanted. So we do a secondary a function which uses that tweet ID to give us the author and the username of that tweet. And then once we do that, we can then get the client, then we can run these functions at the bottom there. So now we're running the get client to get the client, and then we're getting the tweets, we're putting them inside of a list, and then we're just reorganizing that list to include both the text and the username of that tweet so that we can display all of that. And we can get the URL, which is the URL of the actual tweet location, that if you got this URL, you'll be able to go back to Twitter and find that URL so that you can do something with it, whether you want to retweet or whatever. Okay, so this is what we did last week. Okay, so I'm going to refactor this code a little bit. Okay, I'm going to change a couple of things here because I'm thinking this URL, perhaps we can have it already in the object because I want to get rid of this function, right? So inside of this, let's see, if I say obj URL, can I rebuild this URL? Can I build this URL from here? So if I copy all of this, right, and I say this is equals to, so that I can be able to see from that object, and I can immediately get the text, the username, the ID, and I can immediately do all of that and then create the URL. So the URL is going to be the status format x.username. So it's going to be format this exactly. So this username, you can just like copy what's in here. This is exactly what needs to be in here. All right, so you can paste that. That will give us the username. And then we want the ID over there. So we can copy that ID and then we can put it in there. Then this should give us the URL as well inside of that object, and then we can get the object list. So what we can do then in here, we can then delete that, okay? Then we can put all of this in a function, okay? So it can be, you can call this def return the tweet list, return search tweet list. All right, and we don't know what we want to input first, but let's then we create the client. So this is an object, this is the query. So I can actually remove this and say we will feed in the query. So we will feed in the query over there, which makes more sense. So when we call this function, we'll tell it what the query should be, right? Then we will then get the tweets using that query, and that client we just built there will create a list. We'll check if the length of the tweets is greater than 0. We will do all of that. We'll get to run the tweet function for everything. So this is going to take a bit of time. This function is going to be time consuming because it's going to be running for every tweet there, this function. And so that's okay. We should really try and minimize this. I think I want to refactor this code and not use Tweepy at all and just go directly with the Twitter API. Perhaps I'll do a tutorial on that because this is going to take a bit of time for me to be able to, every time after I've gotten a list, like if I have a long list of like 20 things to do this per tweet, so it's going to be like doing like 20 different API calls, and our API calls are limited, by the way. But it's okay in production. I'll definitely not use Tweepy at all because for some reason I couldn't, from the initial API call, directly get the tweet ID. I could get the tweet ID, but I couldn't get the user ID. I mean, I tried even using their API, it doesn't return it. But if I did the direct Twitter one, I think I should be able to get it so that I don't make 2 calls. But nonetheless, then this should be able to then, when you finish running this function, what we want to do is to return the OBJs, return this list. So this list over here that we're basically feeding into, okay, is what we want to return. So then this function over here is the only function we need to call to get this list, and this list will have a text, a username, an ID, which we don't quite need. We actually just need a text, a username, and a URL, okay? And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to then call this function inside of our app.py, right? So now what I've done is that I've now added this search.py file in the same root directory where our app is. So inside of our app.py file at the top there, we can import search. So it's going to import this file, from the top there. So inside of our index, when we are when we are like displaying the first page, we can actually then say tweets is equals to search. So search is that file there, and inside of that file called search, we can call that function directly with a query. All right, and then this query, we can define it at the top there. So we can say query, right? Query is equals to, what are we gonna search for today? I don't know. Let's search for CRM. I like searching for CRM. Okay, let's search for CRM app. CRM. Okay, that's okay. So we're gonna search for CRM, and then we are gonna get the tweets like that. Okay, so once we get the tweets like that, this tweets is now, because we are already sending into the render template the locals. What this function does is that each and every single variable that is mentioned inside of that index file will be automatically sent over to the front end thing, to the front end template, which you can then access using the Ginger templating variable system, whatever, and you can then get this tweets in the front end. So if I go to the front end, then let me just copy this. I don't get this. Okay, I'm not gonna get the spelling wrong, but like now when you get here, you can then say, all right, so the same way the templating inside of Python Django, because we've done a lot of Django tutorials in here. Similar templating, the way when we do it with Django, when we want to access variables from the back end, and we use the this Ginger templating, we're going to do the same thing with the Flask. It works pretty much the same way. So we can actually literally say for tweet in tweets like that, and then we can end for here. Right, and for tweet in tweets, we actually want to display the username. All right, the username, which is the person who tweeted the tweet. All right, and the username is going to be tweet dot, if you remember our function, what is it? Tweet dot, we have the username there. All right, so we can say tweet dot username. Right, and then the text, it can be tweet dot, the actual tweet itself, the tweet text, that's what we want to display. All right, so the tweet dot where's my search? Tweet dot text is what we want to display there. So we can say tweet dot text. Right, so at the bottom here, this I didn't want to say displayed. I last updated 3 minutes ago. I actually want to have like a button over here. So let's have a look at the cards here and see if there's a way I can have a button at the bottom. The code for that, I think there is something. No. All right, so this last update, it's a card footer. All right, so after the card body, you can have a card footer. So let's try that and remove this last paragraph. All right, and after the card body, you could have a card footer in here, and inside of the card footer, I will then maybe add a button. Right, a button that says, okay, and I can use change this to say class equals to btn. This is button. This is a Bootstrap class system. You can use button primary. All right, let's then just say view. So I just want to be able to like click on this button and it takes me to the Twitter page, which shows this tweet. Remember, we've got the URL that we've selected over there. Okay, so it's the URL that's going to be inside of this inside of this list, because we want to be able to then access that tweet. Now it makes sense why I was doing all of this last week, right? I was actually setting myself up for this, which was actually supposed to be part of last week's tutorial, but then the tutorial ended up being a little bit too long. So that's why I broke it up into two. And then the URL here, the href of this is just going to be the URL, a tweet.url, tweet.text, tweet.username. This is tweet.url, right? So this is going to be an interesting one. Okay, I'm going to test it right in front of you right now, and we're going to see. So a lot of things are going to have to fall into place for this to go without a hitch. The first one is, obviously, I hope I set up my config properly inside of the search function. So I've got the config and I've imported it at the top, and hopefully I've set it up properly and my API keys still work. Then I'll be able to then run this function, which immediately gets the client and gets these tweets, and then it runs all of these, and depending on how many tweets it gets. But I think I've limited it to 10, okay, the max query search. So what we can do as well is later on we can programmatically set this max query search. Okay, so for now, let's leave it as 10 always. But what I'll do later on is I'll feed this into the function so that you can select it from the app itself, so you can decide how many query results you want to get, which is probably how most apps will work. All right, so let's push this and see. Right. Then let's run that. Okay, run without issues. So let us refresh this, and it's gonna take a while to refresh because this function, like I said, it's taking time, but it worked perfectly. Okay. So there is my tweets. It's got 10 tweets with that query function. And all of them should have something that talks to CRM, okay? So learning management system, online learning. I don't know what's in here. It's just like tags. Is this like retweeting something else? I don't know. But so what you can do here is that you can then you can view, because I should have this URL over here. So I can literally open this in a different window, which should open the Twitter page with this tweet, and you can see it. You see? All right, so that's the tweet. Okay, let's see the other one. Let's see this one. This is maybe just a retweet. And I think there's a way you can fashion the query that it doesn't, because this one is just hashtags, and then there's an image. Okay, so maybe that's why it doesn't display, because then I should find a way to display images if I want to display it. And you can be even more complicated if you like, okay? But the point is, you can see the tweets, you can see the text, you can decide, because instead of like retweeting everything that comes your way, you can do something like this where you can see the tweets themselves and decide what you want to retweet. So if you changed this, for example, to, I don't know, what's trending now on Twitter? Let's see. I'm going to go to the home page. And I'm going to try and find something that is trending right now. Jube, okay? Jube, all right? So let's say we change this CRM to say Jube, right? Let's save this and run this and see, right? Jube, it's fine. Origin master. Right. So that's restarted. So I'm gonna close that and I'm gonna refresh this. It should now be searching for something else. So it takes a time to load because it's doing like 10 different thingies. But there you go. Warning my book readers, take advantage of this data. You really want to miss this Black Friday special. I like Jube Squared on a certain extent because it did it this time. However, Jube doesn't have a filter. It's going to be a great one. So you can this one looks interesting. So I can have a look at it and open it, and you can see this is copying another tweet. All right. And so what you can do is that you can check the tweets, and then you can, like, you search for something specific. Juju said Kelikumalo what? Juju's gonna drop a lot of files on the podcast with MacG. So there's a lot of things you can do here. So what I want to do now, right, which is we're building this app and making it proper, right? I want to be able to add a search, so what we're entering here manually in the back end, your users are not going to be able to go into your code and enter stuff like this in the back end. So what we're going to do instead is, actually, let's refactor the number of tweets first, okay? So this search.py, currently it's getting us 10 tweets. So this max results, I want it to be max results that comes from there, okay? So this max results, I'm gonna copy that, and I'm gonna say max results is equals to max results, and then I'm gonna make sure that I give it the max results there, okay? So this search tweet function, where is it? Search tweets, this one. Right, search tweets, it must have max results that come over there. All right, so it must get the max results, which means we must give it the max results from over there. All right, so search tweets list, we must also be able, when we give this function out, we must also decide what is the max results. So over here, we must specify the max results. So maybe we can say 5, for example. Okay, so let's run it. Let's run this one. And let's save this. Actually, let's just say max results, and then say max results is equals to 5. Right. So let's see this. Max results. Okay, so let's refresh this. Did I not change the term from Job? So this will run a little bit faster, I think. Oh, it's between 10 and 100. Okay, so you can't get 5. You have 10 is the minimum. Okay, that's okay. So 10 is the minimum. Awesome. So you can come over here, restart it, and let's rerun it again. It's loading. You'll see it's going there. Okay, so there you go. We've got 10 back. Media creativity, stamps for sale, So currently, when there's a link like that, for example, it doesn't display this link. And I think there's a way, if you wanted to do it, you can have a little bit more rich display. But I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the tweets and the information inside of the tweet, because I'm looking for somebody. Remember, we said we're building this for like our own lead generation. So I'm interested in what people are saying. Someone that's retweeting someone else is not really looking for my help. And if I'm searching for lead generation, I want to see what person is saying. Like, someone is going to be asking CRM recommendations or whatever, and then I'm going to be able to view, retweet, or private message. So next to this view button, I want to add a button here that says retweet, so that I can immediately retweet that tweet from the API, right? So we're going to build that function. If I look over here, I think I have a retweets.py file, okay? Inside of the retweets.py file, retweet something. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. Client retweet. You just need the tweet ID. Okay. You see there. That's the function for retweeting. I wrote this for something, for another thing, but that's not what I needed it for. So I'm going to copy that. Right, and I'm going to go into my search, right, into my search, and I'm going to create a new function here that I'm going to call def retweet something, and then we're going to have maybe a tweet ID over there, and I'm just going to paste that client retweet, the selected ID. If you want to see where I got this function from, inside of the Tweepy API, if you just search here for retweet, retweet. Okay, retweet. Is this the right? No, it's this one. Retweet. There you go. Let's go to the top. Client retweet. There you go. So it's client retweet with a tweet ID. Okay, even at the top here, if you looked at the list of on the API, and this is I covered this in a lot of detail, before. So client retweet. Okay, you just retweet, you just enter the tweet ID, it will retweet that tweet. So all I need is a tweet ID. And you can see over there that whenever we're getting a tweet, we also have the tweet ID. This is a tweet ID of that tweet. So inside of that tweet, there is the ID. So we can basically just retweet and give it a tweet ID. So client retweet, and then in here, I'm just going to say ID. Okay, so I'm just going to call this function and client retweet tweet ID. So then what I need to do is to add a button, and that button must have a URL that takes us to a retweet. All right, so inside of the app.py over here, we're going to have to add another root. Let me see, is that the best way to do it? And call that retweet. Yeah, we can do that. So I haven't done Flask in a while, so I have to remind myself a lot of these things. So we're going to say def in the retweet, and we obviously have to call this retweet as well. All right, so we're going to call retweet, and inside of this retweet, we have to enter the tweet ID. So the tweet ID needs to come from the URL itself. Okay, so the tweet ID is going to have to come from here. So over there, we have to attach the tweet ID. I think that's how it's done. I have to remind myself. It's been a while since I've done this. It's a string of the tweet ID. Is this how we do it? Okay, let me just double check my notes. I'm going to come back here and just make sure that I'm showing you guys the right thing, because I haven't done Flask in quite a bit. Okay, so I have consulted my notes on Flask, but I think I'm on the right track. So basically what we're going to do here is that we're going to send with the URL. Okay, within the URL that is going to access this route, we're going to send a string variable that we're going to call tweet ID. And we'll be able to get the tweet ID from this tweet function itself, from the tweet object, because this tweet object includes the tweet ID. If you look at the search.py over there, we've got the tweet ID. So we'll be able to get the tweet ID from the specific object of the tweet. And we can then send the tweet ID to the backend, to this new route on this function over here, over there. And then we can access the tweet ID to do the retweet over there. So we can where is it? Inside of the search function, I think we created this new function there, all right? So retweet ID. So def retweet is a client.retweet ID. Okay, so let's rewrite this function. It's not complete. We need to specify the client over there. So let's get the client. All right, so let's get the client. I think this is a whole different function, so we will recall the client again. So we will create the credentials every time we are retweeting. So we will say client get client, and then we will say the client retweet that ID that comes in there. And I think that's it. What else do we need to do? That's it. Return. We don't even have to return anything. We can just leave it like that, I think. Okay. So that's done. Then let's call this function inside of our app.py. So then let's say retweet a tweet ID. So then let's say we're gonna then call this by saying search, because we have this inside of the search file times retweet, and then we need to enter in there the tweet ID. The tweet ID, that one, which should be the same as that tweet ID over there. Okay. All right. So something is wrong here. Okay. So this tweet ID we have to like spell it exact or write it exactly the same way, because it's the same variable that we're pulling into the view function, and then it's the same that we're sending over there. So after we've done this, we definitely have to return here. We're gonna return we're gonna redirect. Okay, we're gonna redirect. Do you want to redirect? Because if we redirect back here, what this will do is that it will rerun this query again and then display that index.html, which will take a whole 10 minutes again. What can we do here? It's fine. Let's just redirect. We're going to redirect. So there's something else I've done in the background. I've imported redirect from Flask. So I had imported only these two. So I want you to import URL for redirect and request. We're going to need both of them. Okay. So we're going to redirect URL for, and you just need to enter the name of the URL. In this specific case is the index. Okay. So we're going to redirect back to the index page, which means it will just then rerun this again with the search query. Or instead, yeah. So let's make this search query project management. Okay. All right. So what it will do is that it will redirect back to that. Then this will run the query. Then it will get 10 more items, and it will show them again. And you can either retweet them or whatever you want to do with those things. Okay. So this should now work for retweeting. But one last step is to actually add the button that does the retweeting. The button that actually then sends the the request to this function over there. So we can go to the index.html over here. And inside of the footer, what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to have a row, and I'm going to have a column. Column LG6. Remember what I said? Imagine a row is 12 units. So I'm dividing into 6 units, which means I'm dividing it into half. And then I'll put the first button in here. I don't know if I can say here button block. I don't know. View tweet, right? And then have another div, column LG6. We're dividing it into another, the second half of the 12. And this button now says retweet. Okay. And this one can be a button success. Remember, primary is a blue button, success is a green button. You can check all of this inside of the Bootstrap documentation. If you go into if you're on the Bootstrap documentation page and you go into the docs, and if you go into the components, I think, and then you look for the buttons, accordion, badge, buttons, you can see over there the different colors of buttons that's available. So you got the primary button is BTN primary, that's the blue button. And then the success is going to be the green one. Okay, so button success is that one over there. So that's the button that I want to display for the retweet. Okay, and this one will not be tweet.url. It will be, we're going to do something here. We're going to say the href is we need to send it to this URL, to this one. Okay, so let's copy it. All right, let's copy that and paste it in there. So instead of the tweet ID there, I need to actually put the tweet ID in here. What is that tweet ID? It is the tweet.id, right? So let's double check our search. What's inside there? It's ID. Okay. So inside of the index, it's tweet.id. So it will then route this to this app route. And then it will show retweet there, and then it will run this function retweet, and then it will redirect us back to the index. Okay, and then you'll be able to retweet that specific tweet. Okay, so and then I'll check that it has retweeted it. Okay, and then it will then refresh this with 10 tweets. Okay, so let's run this. Nope, not over there. Let's actually close over there. Let's run it in here. Okay, git add. Coolio, and we are, yeah, what's happening here, guys? What is happening? I think I need to close this port because shit is happening on my port now. So let's run that. And so it's running. Let's actually go and refresh the page so that it gets all the project management tweets. Takes a while to do that. So it will be different tweets. So these are all the project management tweets. Let's check. Let's actually search the word project management. You see, these are all the project management tweets that it has searched. All right. And once it gets these project management tweets, then, I don't know, job hiring, project management team for Northern whatever. Let's find something we really want to like retweet, okay? Innovative project with amazing invention under the management of successful, brilliant teams. I don't know who's ultra to meet environmental challenges, funded project, work on smart, sustainable management tools in order to address floods, droughts, good, many other. Let's view this one. So we can open it in a new tab and have a look at the tweet. If this is a kind of tweet we might want to retweet, I don't know. I don't think so. I know management class is corrupt and why we need to. There's going to be innovative project with amazing invention under the management, successful, brilliant teams, real future asset. Let's view this one. Let's view that tweet over there. Innovative. This is also another retweet. I don't want to retweet this. Perhaps we want to structure our tweets a little bit better, okay? I mean, our searches, because this is really random, okay? So I've got this page over here that I've opened, okay? And this is somebody else's, page. It's not mine, but they've got a very useful search criteria for Twitter, because you can sort of restrict your search to specific people that are tweeting specific usernames and so forth, so that you get some a sort of a more structured search, because right now I'm getting like a whole lot of crap searches. But I'll link this in the description for you as well. So for example, you can say you only want language English, right? So this is important because you don't want Japanese tweets only, right? So here inside of my search query, I can say project management, and then I can say language English, okay? So it will only search English tweets for me, right? Then I can say has images, or has geo, or is retweet. So give me all the tweets from an account that are not retweets, exactly. So I also don't want retweets, okay? So we can also do that, okay? And it will then not give you retweets, minus retweets, okay? Because then retweets is not actually the person's tweets. And you can also say from a specific account if you only want tweets from a specific account. So I definitely, and you can search for more than one variable if you put a space in between. So if you wanted to say project management and CRM, right? So this would search for two different things, okay? So let's maybe do something like that. And you don't want a retweet, has geo, that's okay, it's not important. Has images, tweets only that have images, and definitely in the English language. So I'll put this in the description for you, and then you can be able to see all the other things that you want to add, okay? So definitely English tweets that are not retweets, okay? Let's search that again, okay? All right. No retweets, only English. All right. Okay, so it has already refreshed that. Let's go back to our thingy and let's refresh this again. Take a while, it'll take a while. That's better. Okay, senior consultant, so this is a job tweet. Okay, let's view this. So at least we're not getting retweets now, okay? Senior consultant, CRM project management, remote, is the leader in cloud-based software for the global science industry, committed to innovation, product excellence, and customer, so forth, okay? I don't know. I don't want to retweet that job thingy. SAP experts will share project. Nope. Project management CRM. So can you use both? The majority of people believe that customer data is a tool that assists you managing your contacts, relationship, da, da, da. Let's have a look at that. This looks like a nice thing that we could retweet. Okay, so you could retweet it here, but let's say you read it there and you liked this, and well, there it is, and you wanted to retweet it from here. We're gonna test our retweet button. You can see when you hover over it, it's showing at the bottom there where it's gonna go. It's showing you the tweet ID, which is this 146. Let's just double check that this tweet ID is the right one, but it should be this 146, whatever, that tweet ID. You can see it over there. When you click the retweet button, it also shows. Okay, so I'm going to click the retweet and just see what's going to happen. Okay, it's going. It's going to retweet. It takes us back to this page. So I'm going to check my Twitter page. All right, I'm going to check my Twitter page, and I'm going to go to my profile, and I'm going to double check that it retweeted that. There you go. I just retweeted this right now. This is that tweet that I just retweeted. Okay, so this is how you can retweet. So this retweet button works perfectly. You can view the tweet, you can retweet the tweet. What I want to do now is, instead of entering this manually at the back end, I actually want to add a form input over here. All right, I want to add a form and an input, a sort of like an input element that you can just, enter whatever the search query is, and it will search that query, and you can do that programmatically. Okay, so let's do that first, and there we go. We need a form. All right, so let's go into our index file. I'm gonna try and freestyle this. Okay, so your latest tweets, I want a bit of a space over here, so I'm gonna add an MB3, imagine bottom 3, so I can have a bit of space underneath. No, not there. Yeah, actually, yeah. MB5, imagine bottom 5 underneath there. That's all right. And then this H1 as well, I'm gonna add an imagine bottom 3. Okay, so that there's a little bit of space after that H1. Okay, and then this card group, I'm gonna add as well imagine top 3, so that there's a imagine top, let's see, 3 or 5. 5, so that there's a space between the card group, and then I can put my form in here. All right, so we're gonna add a form. All right, and this action is gonna go to there, so we're gonna take it directly there, and it's gonna be a post form. And then inside this form, we're gonna put in an input. All right, we're gonna put in an input of text, and its name is gonna be, we're gonna call this the search query. We're going to call it query, and there's no value, and we're going to say that it's required. All right. I haven't done a Flask form in a while, so bear with me, guys, if it's going to be a bit rugged over here. And let's say there's a label for this, right? There's a label for query. All right. All right, and this label is going to say enter the search query for Twitter. All right, and then after that, we're gonna have some spaces, and then we're gonna put in a button, and that's gonna be a button, submit button, and it's gonna have a class. Let's see, we can have it as a primary button. Okay, btn primary, btn primary. Okay, and then we're gonna just call in the run search query. Okay, and then technically what that should happen, it should submit the form to the backend, and then the backend should process this form. All right, so we need a backend processing inside of the app.py. You see, if you look at our root, because we're going to send this to this root, and you can see it's the home root, and it takes both get and post requests. So we need to then deal with the post request. Okay, so to deal with the post request, we're going to have to give it a conditional and say if a request, and by the way, before you do this, you should have imported request to the top first. So we're going to say if request dot method is equals to post. So this only runs if there's a post request, and if it's get request, this will run. Okay, so if it's a post request, this will still run. Should the post request run before that? I think it should definitely run before that. So if request is post, the very first thing that should happen is this should run first. Okay, if request is post, that should run first before this runs. And then after this runs, we should then when this runs, we should then say we're gonna get the query out. All right, the query out. The query is gonna be what's in the request.form. All right, request.form, and we're gonna get what did we call it? We called it query, so we should get it inside of the request.form. It's called query, so this should basically be that. And then we should then take that query and put it inside of this function, right? So this query is then that. So what we can do here is that we can define the query over there, right? Before we run that function. So we can define the query there. And then we can say if the query, if this is, so the query, the default query will always be project management CRM. So if you come here and you search and the request is not post, the default query will always be that, okay? But then if the request is post, the query is now whatever we posted in there. And then after that, we go max result, and then we still run this function as we run it, okay? So this is a bit, I don't know, freestyled, but let's see if this will work. This means that if we do a post request, this query will override that project management query. Let's remove CRM so that we're searching for only one thing and we can figure out what exactly was actually queried. But actually what I want to do is I want to do something different. I want to say query is that, but query is going to be now something else. Actually, I want query to be the same thing, right? So let's do it like that. I want query to be the same thing, right? Format, right? Format that, close in there, right? And then this to be inside of the brackets, okay? So format request.form that query. So what this will do is that the query will be project management, language English is retweet, right? Because I want the language English and its retweet to remain. And then if we enter a different query, whatever, it will be like a topic, whatever you wanna query jib or whatever it is. But then it will be entered in here, and the language English and its retweet will remain. Manners is retweet will remain, so that this structures the way we are searching there. And we're still getting max results 10. I think what we'll do is that we will also maybe enter a field for entering the max results, but maybe we'll leave it as 10 minimum. Let's leave it as 10 for now. Let's leave it as 10 for now so that people don't enter it programmatically. But later on, when you're running this function yourself, you could do what you want and maybe same way we're doing this form, enter it differently. Okay. Yeah, let's test this. Let's see what this will look like. Okay. Okay, add a search form. Okay. Coolio. Okay, it's already restarted. Let's refresh this page. There we go. All right, so I think what we want is we want to style this a little bit better. Let's look at our forms. Where's our forms? Forms. Okay. Form control. Let's see over there. Yeah, this is what I want. Okay. So let's just copy this whole thing. MB3. In there. Yeah. So let's, because this form looks terrible. Okay, let's do that in there. So let's have a form that has a label and a whatever. Okay, so so we can replace this label. Okay, let's actually leave the for query and leave the class as form label, and then you can just like cut this out of there and replace it at the top there. All right, and then the input is type text, not type email. All right, the class is form control, the ID is query, and the placeholder over here, let's give it a name as well. We need a name for the background, so the name is also query. And the placeholder is going to be, I don't know, enter, yeah, search for, I don't know, something like that, right? Yeah, let's definitely, then we don't need this BR in there because we've got the class MB3 at the top there. So let's try that, because then that form looked terrible. All right, let's then run this and test this one. Add form control. Okay. Awesome. So let's refresh this one and let's have another look. And it takes a while again to refresh because it's going through the project management 10 retweets. That's much better. That's much better. Okay. Enter the query that you'd like to search for. You can run search query. So let's query for something else, because this is now searching for project management, right? So we want to search for, I don't know, should we search for Joop again? Let's search for Joop again and let's see if that will run. Okay. Yeah, it works. If I do Joop here to make sure that the stuff that's been returned here is Joop. Yes. So this is Joop stuff. So you can change what is being searched. You can put in any other search query in there. It runs, it goes into the form, it displays the thing that you're searching for. And so you can come. So this can be your own lead generation platform and save yourself $25 a month from paying for people who code this and charge you $25 a month to run your lead generation. So you can do, like, for example, let's say I want to do CRM recommendations. Recommend. Let's see if that will come up with anything, right? There you go. There is some CRM recommendations. In list, we recommend you check this open sub course. Which marketing CRM would you recommend to send out automated marketing material? This is exactly what I want. I'm going to go there and view this tweet, right? Which marketing CRM would you recommend to search automated? Yes, yeah. Try our CRM. Yes. Why don't you try our CRM? Actually, yeah. Try our CRM HTTPS. I'm gonna actually open it so I can get the proper. I can get the proper the proper page that I actually want to send this person to. I want to send them to this app, to this URL, so they can read more about it. And I'm going to be finding, there you go. So I've created this, and then I can retweet this, reply to that directly, and you can see what the tweet is, right? There you go. Oh, did I close my thing? Oh. Did I close it? Okay, it's fine. I can reopen it. HTTP. All right. Yeah, I can reopen. Did I? HTTP. Okay, I think it's port 8000. Okay. Yeah, it's a slow opener, but it's okay. So what did I say? CRM recommendations. Yeah, recommend. Okay, so let's search that. There you go. So so this is the one I did. Want to learn I could recommend this software. It's a simple budget VIP provider for whatever. Good morning. Which CRM would you use as a small business? I want to use a spreadsheet. Da, 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 da. There you go. There you go. There you go. I wanna. I've got something to recommend for you. Yeah, no more spreadsheets. Yeah. Try that. There is a 14-day free trial. There is a 14-day free trial, and it's really affordable. How else would you have searched for this tweet on Twitter? Thank God for the API version 2, right? I love it. So you can even like increase this app.py. You can increase this to like 20, and you can search for 20 things at a time. And you can run this app inside of a authenticator so that other people don't access your whatever. Because if someone runs on this, they'll be running on your API keys. And you can keep it like inside somewhere that's protected with your authentication. And you can go and load it on a proper URL over there so that you can just access it. When you're ready, you just open the website and you log in, because you can protect it behind an authenticator, an authenticated system. And then you come here daily and you search for, you do this on a daily basis, and every day you're gonna get people that are asking. Trust me, I used to pay for lead generation CRM, and this is exactly the kind of tweets that they send to you, but I used to pay like good $20-$30 a month for that. But I'm a developer. Why the hell would I do that when I can just write my own code? So now you can do this, and perfectly built. So thank you guys for watching. This has been amazing. I think next week, I'm done with my Twitter API version 2. Everything that I've shown you up to this point, you can go read the rest of the documentation and do a lot of other things with this API. Honestly, there's a lot you can do. I cannot cover each and every single endpoint, but I think I've shown you enough for you to be able to do something amazing. The first tutorial, I showed you how to just generate the API keys from Twitter. Last week's tutorial, I showed you how to use the version 2 to search for things, and today I've shown you how to actually create a front end to be able to visualize what you're doing in the back end, so you don't have to do everything like that. You can then just load this app up running on a URL somewhere on a domain, and protect it under some sort of authentication system, so that only you can access it. And you can then start using this for a lot of other things. And if you don't know how to do search queries, you can then just use this to retweet. By the way, I got a question last week. How would you use this to just retweet something that is a specific hashtag or whatever? So you would do the exact same thing. So the code I've shown you, actually, you can just refactor it to do that. So what you would do is that you would combine search and retweet. So inside of the search functionality here, where you're getting all your tweets, you get all your tweets in a list like that. So instead of then putting it in an object and sending it to display it, you can just iterate through this list and retweet everything. So you can just say, instead of sending this back, you can just say, for tweet in this list, boom, client.retweet the ID, boom, 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 it'll retweet all of that stuff for you. So this is how they build those retweet bots that get like thousands of followers, and they're not following anyone. They just have a search query, a fixed hashtag that they want to retweet everything under that hashtag, and then every like 5 minutes you can then run it under a scheduler. Okay, so you can use a something like this, and say maybe every hour or every certain day of the whatever, you can use a scheduler like that. I've done a tutorial on this. You can check. I don't remember which one. It's one of my many Python tutorials. But you can run. This is very simple. And the documentation is very well written. That if you went here and you just did pip install, you just import it at the top. This would be your function. So this def job would be that function that you're running. This def job would be that just searches through whatever query and gets the list. And then instead of returning this, you just go for tweet in this list, boom, client.retweet the ID of that tweet. So this would be the function. So this function you would put in there, and then you would say schedule every day at a certain time, do job. Or you can just schedule every 10 minutes, every hour. So every hour, do whatever the name of you call that function. Then you just at the end run through schedule, run pending, boom, and then you run that Python script. Then you're gonna ask, but how are you gonna run a Python script continuously? Well, this is why we run our functions inside of a virtual private server. You can't do this on your personal computer because the moment you switch it off, everything switches off. So on a virtual server, you can then run your Python script over there, like a place like domains or co.za. You can use a screen, because I use screen, and you can run it behind a screen, or you can use some of the systemctl. I've got tutorials how to run Python script in the background, and then you can actually close the VPS, leave it, and then it will continue to run that way. But I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. I'm just showing you how you would do it. There's a lot of tutorials I've got on working with the virtual private server. You would do something like that, or there's some Python Anywhere websites that allow you to run scripts, continuously. You would use something like that. Okay, but a virtual private server is like $5 a month. Okay, it's gonna cost you to do this. It can't be free. So you do it like that, or you can keep your computer open and switched on the whole time, and then you can run the script, whichever way works for you. Okay, so guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys next week. We're gonna do something different. So this is gonna conclude our Python, API. Twitter API series. Next week, we're going to do something else. We're going to move away from this, and I will let you know next week what we're going to do. So see you guys again next week. Thanks. Bye-bye. Mwah. I love you all.